Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Mr. Mikhail's Manor of Mischief, Magic, and Mystery, the podcast where we talk about music, the occult, and just day-to-day life. I am your host, Andrew Mikhail, and welcome to the 6M Podcast. And we're back. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Mr. Mikhail's Manor of Mischief, Magic, and Mystery, the podcast, aka the 6M Podcast. This is episode 17. Well, technically 18, but you guys know it is episode 17. So, hope you guys have been enjoying all of the previous episodes and also the episodes to come. As you have guessed it, I am alone today, being that a couple episodes ago I had announced that I'm toying with the idea of doing one podcast solo, then the next one with a guest, then solo, then with a guest, solo with a guest. And being that the last episode was with the Lizard from the Lizard and the Wizard podcast saga, today I'm solo. So, also, a side note, I heard you guys have been really enjoying those podcasts, so thank you for enjoying both mine and my guest podcast so far. I got a lot of really cool ideas once quarantine or lockdown gets lifted. I've got a lot of ideas of some cool segments with some friends in the industry, just friends in real life, friends from all places. So I can't wait till things calm down and then we ramp up some craziness with some tour stories, crazy stories, whatever. But moving along, as you guys know, we don't have any sponsors for the podcast just yet. So being that I am the frontman guitarist of Serpents US and also the owner of True Media Music, we're going to do a little bit of ads or homemade ads regarding both. But before we do that, I just want to remind you guys, we do have a Facebook group for the podcast. I think it's facebook.com/groups/the 6M podcast. That's the SIXM podcast. Do me a favor, if you're listening to this, head over there and join our Facebook group. It's a private group, so the whole gist of it is to get you guys on there and get you guys talking about the episodes, asking questions, just making each other laugh, making each other cry, fighting with each other, whatever you guys want. It's still new, so we need some new members. So feel free to join that. And also, if you guys have missed it, the podcast is now streaming on YouTube on my new YouTube channel. You can search Andrew Mikhail, or you can search the 6M Podcast or whatever on YouTube. Do me a favor, if you guys are already there joining the Facebook group, as I'm talking, head over to the YouTube channel and subscribe to our YouTube. A lot of new stuff in the pipeline coming on the channel. And also another thing I want to tell you to do is head over to the Serpents YouTube while you're there. That's We Are Serpents, and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Okay? I know it's a lot to ask, but it goes a long way. So, another announcement is, as always, please, while you're subscribing to the Andrew Mikhail YouTube and the Serpents YouTube and joining our Facebook group on Facebook groups, head over to our Spotify at Serpents US. Give us a follow. Spin some tunes after you're done listening to this podcast. Get your daily dose of Mr. Mikhail. Yeah, I just said that in third person. I don't know. I feel so weird talking about myself or telling you guys to do things, so give me a fucking break, will you? But, yeah, listen to some tunes, follow us on Spotify, and add us to your favorite playlists, will you? Add us to a playlist you guys work out with, go driving around with, or even your sex playlist, whatever floats your boat. Just spread the love, because as you guys have guessed it, we are one of the few bands out there that are not asking you guys out of respect to purchase any merch or whatever have you. Well, let me rephrase that. So Bandcamp does a sale on the 1st of every month so far, where they waive like all their fees and whatnot. So if you guys really, really, really want to support and really want merch, stay tuned to our socials for a Bandcamp post where we say, hey, today's the day. If you want merch, buy it. If not, just save your money and follow us on Spotify, YouTube, and all that other junk. As always, I keep saying as always, god damn. You can add us on Facebook at facebook.com/weareserpents, Instagram at serpentsmetal, Twitter at weareserpents, and you can find our Bandcamp at weareserpents.bandcamp.com. And if you're just overwhelmed, why don't you try this? Instead of heading to our website, head to this link, ffm.to/weareserpents. You'll find everything you need right there and in the air. Cool? Cool. All right. So this podcast is going to be a little bit of a short one. And I wanted to talk about the title of the podcast. Is called A New Foe Has Appeared. Now, some of you might get the joke or understand the reference. And if you do, hats off to you. But it's not a video game podcast. It's not a meme podcast. It's basically a little journaling of sorts of basically the new challenges that have, the new challenge that has popped up in my life as of recently. And if you guys have been paying attention, you would notice that this podcast is also a week late. My apologies for those of you that have been chomping at the bit, waiting for this episode. But the biggest challenge I would say that has popped up for me during this pandemic, global pandemic, global endemic, global disease, whatever you want to call it, would be, are you ready for it? That's a blast beat. It's not even a drum roll. It's burnout. Ta-da! Dun, 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 dun. Yep. The new challenge that has reared his ugly head in my life is burnout. Now, what is burnout to me is different to you. So if you're sitting here waiting for me to unload, I guess, a similar story to yours and offer some advice as to how to overcome your personal trials and tribulations, it might not be what you're looking for, but like I said, this is my podcast, and I want to talk about things that I'm dealing with, because if I live long enough to see another day or another month or another year, I want to look back and be like, look at that. Look at what I thought was a big deal back then, which is pretty much what I did once this whole situation unfolded. I looked at my old posts or old podcast episodes, and I was like, wow, I really thought times were tough back then. Boy, was I wrong. So hopefully things get better as time goes on, but whatever. So burnout for me is not feeling motivated. I know I talked about that little by little in the past episodes, but it has gotten real bad as of late. I've been not motivated. I've been very uninspired, whether to create music, to create podcast episodes, to create social media posts or ideas, merch, whatever the fuck you want to call it. I've just been all over the map, just blah. It's even come to the point where I've even avoided like walking into my studio to, even due to the day-to-day like surfing of the web. The lizard can attest to the fact that, I don't even bother going into my workspace. I just literally sit on the couch all day and, look at my phone, and I'm like a zombie scrolling through Facebook, Instagram, whatever, TikTok even. And it really took a sense of dread and some, inner conflict and some outer conflict to sit there and go, what am I doing right now? What am I doing this for? And how much of my life has passed doing this? We've been in lockdown for 2 months, and all the days, I guess, bleed into each other, with the exception of like, oh shit, I gotta post a podcast today, or oh shit, today's Throwback Thursday, or oh shit, whatever. And, it takes me just out of sheer, I guess, ADD-ness, takes me like 2 to 3 hours for each post that I make. And, also included in those 3 to whatever hours, I do a lot of R&D, research and development, whatever. And what I call R&D is me scrolling through socials and seeing what people are talking about, seeing what memes are popping right now, seeing, what everybody's arguing about. And then on top of that, I'm trying to see like what's going on in the world, what's going on with music, what's going on in the industry. Oh shit, nothing of that has been positive, and I just want to say that, my burnout is not coming from like a sense of like, oh, I'm tired of music, or I'm tired of making music, or I don't want to do a podcast because it's too much work, or trying to upkeep music or the career is too much work. It's mainly just, I'm not really, I guess, motivated to sit here and do all the back work, because if you add up the time in the day spent doing all this stuff for you guys, the post, the podcast, and all that shit, like I don't even have time left to create anymore, like play music. And, it's not the fault of like any of my guys or my team or whatever. Like it's all my fault. But the fucked up part is like, I have the responsibility to make sure we have music coming out, make sure we have riffs to, throw a song together with, to make sure, the releases are released appropriately. And yeah, I get it. Like I could hire people to do that stuff, but at this time, it's like, why even bother, And that whole like idea of why even bother, or, there is no end in sight right now for the shit to get better, kind of brings just a feeling of overall dread, uncertainty, or just all out negativity. And if you guys have been looking at the posts, like you would be like, well, you're not really showing it. You're more outgoing than anything. Because honestly, like when I make my posts as of late, I'm mainly just trying to project some idea of positivity or thoughtful conversation, or like just, hey, let's spark up a conversation. Do you guys like this? Or you guys like this? Or, hey, do you guys want more of this? Or blah, blah, blah. What do you guys think of this? And blah, 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 blah. And that's like literally the only positive I guess, thing that I've been like putting out into the world. And that's kind of fucked up because that's not, who I am. It's not why I started in this business. And, the way everything has changed or is changing, it's only setting things up for everybody to just kind of fake it. And, people see right through it. And honestly, it's fucked up because like, it seems like a lot of you guys are responding well to it, but at the same time, I'm not. I've been feeling more tortured than anything. Like, it's awesome to see like people responding and be like, yes, finally, like some engagement, because we have to feed the algorithm, or you have to do this, and you have to, like, I don't like, as a musician that has been around and doing this since like the early 2000s, I don't give a fuck about algorithms and whatnot. But considering that everything has switched to online, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, it's just like, dude, that's not what I signed up for. And it's exhausting. Even in my personal life, I'm just exhausted. Like, I don't even want to bother doing day-to-day tasks anymore. It's really, really, really taken a toll on my mind and my creative mind and my soul. And thankfully, I have a treasure trove or a treasure chest. I don't know which one you would call it, but I do have a plethora, there you go, of, occult books and philosophies and spiritual books. And, when things have not been as good as they can be, I do refer back to that stuff. I refer back to these lessons, these verses, these whatever. And I remember, oh yeah, this is why I do what I do. This is why I make music. This is why I chose to be a frontman and write all the lyrics. This is why I chose to do a podcast, is to put out this ancient knowledge in a modern form. And, I put it out in the sense that people who subscribe to the old ways and also the new ways can digest and take it in. That's my mark on the world. And doing these posts where I'm like, hey, what you guys think about this and this? It's like, that's not what I started to do this for. And honestly, the biggest thing is not the biggest thing, but like the worst part about it is I've also been noticing, and this could be my own paranoia, but I do have evidence to follow. I've been noticing that like in my, I guess, in my despair, or in my grasping for straws, I've noticed that people have started to copy what I'm doing, or copy my art form, or copy, even the imagery or the logo. Like, I won't dive too much into it because obviously this has happened in the past where, I've been blatantly ripped off, and once confronted, even face to face, these people have, denied it face to face. And, I let it go and whatnot. And granted, my art is my art, but all art is inspired from other art. So it's kind of silly to sit there and, point fingers at people and whatnot. But it's even come to the point that I've noticed like people taking like my artwork or like the logo design and then like switching it up, or literally using the same logo and adding like an extra word, or, you know, taking their sound and adding elements that we use into their sound. And it's just like, I put out genuine, heartfelt music content, whatever the fuck you want to call it. And yeah, you know, I am inspired by others, and, you know, I do my own take on things, you know, like not in terms of art, but in terms of like content and whatever, because let's be real, you know, there is a blueprint and everybody's just trying to get through and do what they got to do. But it's been like blatantly obvious as of late, even to the point where like I've worked with some of these people. Like, let's say, for instance, there was an agent I had hired to, I guess, work with us. Didn't work out very well or at all. And that person started working with bands, and then all of a sudden I'm looking on my Instagram and I see, oh, they have nearly the same name. They're working with this guy and they're using half of our logo. Like, cool. So it kind of like really puts me in a weird position where I'm like burnt out from all this negativity, all this shit, all this despair. And then I'm like, oh, even trying to do something genuine, trying to do something from the heart, and trying to do something, you know, I guess unique, just immediately like gets plucked and copied. And it just kind of like brings me fucking down, man. Like, I get it. I get everyone's in like a feast or famine mode right now, but it's really fucked with my, I guess, purpose for doing this stuff, or even trying to maintain a career in this industry. Because, I mean, as we all know, everything's changing, you know. I've even made some wild claims, you know, where I said, you know, is live streaming concerts going to be the new normal? Because let's be real, once all of the venues open up, once everything gets opened up in general, you know, all of the already established or already booked or already whatever supported acts, they'll get first dibs on all of the new bookings. They'll get first dibs on all the tours rescheduled. They'll get first dibs on everything, which rightfully so. Like, I've been on 3 major labels and I get it. I understand it. Totally. Like, hey, do what you got to do. But it's like, you know, looking at the underground and seeing how everyone's staying afloat. It's either, hey, we got to fundraise and sell a bunch of stuff to people who can't afford it right now, or hey, we got to bring everything to the digital age and do that, and, you know, show everything about everything, you know, online, you know. And I'm not opposed to it, because at this moment I feel like you truly have to adapt to survive. Now, when I say adapt to survive, I don't mean copy to survive. Big difference here, folks. But it's more so like, you know, starting to come to terms with, hey, I guess the next Serpents concert's probably going to have to be a live stream concert, or, you know, a YouTube stream or whatever. And that is the reality of it. And it's kind of hard to do when you're feeling burnt out, right? It's kind of hard to do when you're like, what is the purpose? You know, I started to play music because I wanted to play for people. I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to influence those who, you know, the downtrodden, the whatever you want to call it. Like, I wanted to be a source of light for people that were just like me, or that are just like me, and they're sick of the bullshit, sick of the monotony, and sick of the cookie cutter fucking force fed garbage that we all get force fed every fucking day, whether if it's on the radio, if it's on TikTok, if it's on whatever. Like, there are so many examples of this, and I wish I could talk about this stuff without shooting myself and my guys in the foot, but whatever. So aside from adapting to survive, comes the I guess you would call it the need to move on and overcome and get over it, right? Well, I'm not going to get over the blatant like infringement or property theft or intellectual property theft. That's going to come real soon, but more so like get on with your life. How does one overcome this? And I've in the past week, the lizard and I have been really, really kind of brainstorming real hard as to how does one whose literal whole life is free flowing and open to creativity, how does one set themselves up for success in a not flowing and creative world? Because that's what this is now. Everything is a schedule. Everything's an algorithm. Everything is set, in a certain time, certain place. You got to know your metrics and all this shit. So it's like really teaching an old dog new tricks. Now, new tricks obviously could be skills. I've been really, really honing in on the art of video editing or video making. I've been honing in on a lot of new methods, new products, new audio techniques, new everything. Social medias, marketing, release strategies, stuff like that. And really, I guess that has given me some sort of light at this moment where I'm like, what the fuck? What do I even do right now? And, with learning new skills, you get a certain excitement for things. And this is exactly what has started to happen very, very slowly in the past week. I've been excited about getting new gear. I've put a lot of my gear up for sale in hopes to swap that stuff out and try out new amps, new, pedals, new, all this crazy shit. And, that's given us a sense of excitement, these new skills, and trying to associate the skills with all the new toys. And, and also trying to like add in, let's say, video for the podcast. That would be really fun. I mean, not so much fun, but more entertaining for you guys that are looking for that escape, And another thing I've implemented to help overcome this burnout is, as we talked about in the past podcast, I've taken a step back from socials. I'm only allotting myself a certain time to, browse socials. And even then, guys, even when I'm like on socials for 30 minutes twice a day, I get bummed out because it's exactly the same. It's just a symphony of screams in a digital format. It's crazy. And, with the exception of, happy birthday to this person, or this person reached a milestone, they released an album, whatever. Like that is why I fucking keep on socials. And, I got to see okay, who passed away, or, what band is doing this or whatever. And, it's really a gamble. And that's why, I limit myself to 30 minutes a day, twice a day, to doing that. So if you guys ever see, I'll have like a blast of, content or comments or whatever. And then I take a break for the whole day, and then I go back to it, and then I'm done for the day. Like literally, I don't want to see my phone. I don't want to hear anybody's opinion. I don't want anything, because I should be creating instead. But instead, I'm making sure I'm available to all of you guys. That's why I opened up the Facebook group, because I wanted a direct link to the podcast listeners to be like, okay, like they want to know this. So let's fucking talk, because all of the podcast listeners are of the same mindset. We're all friends here. That's what's up. Like none of you guys are, spouting off crazy facts or whatever. And even if you do, let's fucking talk about it. That's what this is for, So aside from taking a step back, and aside from learning new skills, learning new methods, and aside from diving back in as much as I can to a lot of the occult teachings that brought you Temet Nose, Born of Ishtar, and Pestilence, I've also forced myself to schedule my day, schedule and routine my day. And I know I joked about that on a previous episode where I was like, yeah, every day I wake up, I have my coffee, I make my bed, I sit in the mirror and tell myself 3 things like. That might work for you guys, or that might work for like a person doing a 9 to 5 or whatever. Like I remember when I was a sales representative for a reputable audio company. I don't want to say their name because I don't want this to get pulled. But, one of the guys is like, I remember we went to one of those meetings or like those work retreats. And mind you, this is all so I could fucking afford to put out Temet Nose. So it was hell to go through. But hey, at least you guys have the album, right? And I remember one of the salesmen was like, oh yeah, if you're ever feeling glum, or if you ever got someone like a tough customer, or if you're ever doing a training, like, cause we would have to do trainings for like all the staff for each like store, like Best Buy and whatnot. They were like, take a minute and head to the bathroom, look in the mirror and smile and say, great, 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 great. And I was like, that is fucking psychotic. And thankfully I've never done that, but that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is, scheduling a time for business, the upkeep, the socials, as you guys are probably tired of hearing me talk about. Taking time for leisure, obviously, and then most importantly is scheduling creative blocks to, I guess, spark a sense of urgency in the creative process, but at the same time allotting myself a certain amount of time in a day to at least give it a shot. Like there's a lot of times, for example, right, this Slayer cover that I finished a long time ago, the Seasons in the Abyss cover. I finished it a long time ago, but to be honest with you guys, I'm doing all of the editing, all of the mixing, all of the production. And then after all of that, I have to master it, which is whatever. And then I have to start to implement the release plan, and that takes about a month, or if you're doing it right, a month. But, that takes more time, more effort. And, I have 15 Serpent songs or song skeletons ready, like to be, I guess, built upon. And that's like one thing I'm like, oh, I can't wait to start writing. I can't wait to start writing. But it's like after every day is done, because keep in mind, I'm a family man now. I don't have kids, but, you guys know the deal. But, I'm sitting there and I'm like, I don't have any more time. And it's like by the time, everybody's gone to bed, I'm going to bed too, because guys, I've done the wake up, work, and then sleep, and then wake up, work. Like, aside from eating, that was how, Depths was written. That's how Born of Ishtar was written. That's how Pestilence was written. That's how Temenose was written, because I honestly didn't care about socials, and I didn't care about anyone else in my life. Well, obviously like family, but like, I've sacrificed many relationships, many friendships, many romances, because I was like, it's not as good as creating this badass song for everybody that wants to hear it. And I can't work like that anymore, and that's something that I had to come to terms with in the past week or so, is I had to sit there and be like, well, do I want to destroy everything that I've built up to now? Or do I want to get more serious than I ever was? Because, all of the albums that were written, it's mainly me waking up, aka showing up, putting the guitar in my hand and fucking around for hours and hours and hours and days and weeks and months and years. Like, everything I do has been just show up, get the guitar in the hand, and do what you do. But with the the double-edged sword there is, for like 10 years, the social presence or the online presence or serpents, or like the business aspect of things, were virtually just non-existent. Like, I did not know what I know now. And one of my biggest regrets, if I have any, is the fact that, I went 10 years without any guidance from, professionals. And, well, let me back up. I went 10 years without any guidance from professionals in regards to serpents. Thankfully, I played in other bands in the meantime, and, I learned a lot. I learned a lot of new tricks in some of those other bands I was in. Do I wish I had that time back and think about like, do I think about like what I could have done for my band, my brand, whatever? Yeah, I wish. I definitely wish, looking back. But unfortunately, time travel is not an option yet. So I really just had to pick myself up from the ground and dust myself off and get real and get serious. And that's been pretty much the past year, is me battling this business aspect versus the creative aspect. And ever since Temenose was released last year in April, I've been, picking up all the slack in terms of the business end of things. And I love it. Don't get me wrong, guys. I fucking love the business aspect of my industry, and I love grinding, and I love creating stuff, and I love posting, and I love seeing what people say, and I love reading comments and whatever. Because, when I'm holed up in my studio, that's like the most contact I get, which can be addicting. And based on current trends, is just everybody's shouting from the mountaintop. And unfortunately, I'm addicted to hearing what everybody has to say. And unfortunately, it's all been negative. So really honing in and scheduling time to, I guess, poke my head out of my little village and listen to the shouts from the mountaintop and then go, huh, okay, and I'm going to go back inside now, has been really helping. And for any of my friends who are artists that are creating genuine material, genuine posts, creating with all of their heart, and who feel lost given the uncertainty of what's happening, or just are you feeling burnt out, try doing what I'm doing, scheduling out your day if you haven't already, and making a routine out of it. Like, you got to show up to work. If you work, I don't, this is my main shtick, the podcast, music and the streams and sales, like that's it. I don't have a job. And even if I did have a job, like, probably wouldn't be getting podcasts or music from me, because, when I do something, I'm all in. Let me repeat that. When I do something, I am all in. When I was a sales manager for this audio company that all of you probably know and love, I was all in because I took my job seriously. And then at night, instead of Tindering or, wasting my money on dates that went nowhere, I just fucking sat at home and fucked around and was like, huh, there's a song. But during that time, I didn't know the business aspect of it. So do you guys get what I'm saying? I was focusing on the wrong aspects, but thankfully, the lizard helped me understand the, I guess, structure of like a normal, successful person. And it's really helped me so far. I mean, we're like on a week and a half now, so it's helped me so far, and I highly recommend it to anybody who's struggling out there with burnout. And also, another big thing to remember from this podcast is, obviously, with me bitching about people copying, like, blatantly sometimes what we're doing here or what I'm doing here, I remembered one quote or one simple fact, and I want to remind anyone out there who is, watching everything I do and trying to figure out what's next or how to, beat each other to the punch, because that's honestly what's going on. For all of you guys that are kind of confused as to what I'm talking about, is everyone is fighting to survive right now. And unfortunately, when everyone starts fighting to survive, they start playing dirty. And because of the simple fact that I don't give a shit what anybody thinks about what we're doing, that has kept me in the creative mode, in the, genuine mode. And I just wanted to give this little piece of advice. Where is it? Hold on, let me look it up here. It's about comparing yourself to others. And, well, there's a lot of these quotes. If you guys look it up, there's a lot. But one that I saw before I started recording the podcast, it says, the reason why we struggle with insecurity is because we compare our behind the scenes with everyone else's highlight reel, which, given the fact of the situation and given the, I guess, backstory with everything I just said in this podcast, that really is true at the moment. And something, I guess, I remind myself often when I do see, someone blatantly copying our artwork or our logo or our music style all of a sudden, or our posts. It's just like they struggle with insecurity because they're comparing themselves to us or me. And I do the same thing, so whenever I do get insecure about things, or when I felt burnt out, I was like, look, everyone else is making moves. Everyone else is doing online concerts. Everyone else is doing this. Because that's their fucking highlight reel, guys. It's not like that. It's all a facade. All of it. Everything. And if you remember what I said earlier in this episode, I was putting out a facade. I was like, well, I don't want to broadcast negativity because that has already rotten or decomposed my day to day. So I'm going to try and do something else. And then go figure, someone else sees that. And then they're like, maybe they're not doing so well. Maybe they're like, all right, I got to do that. And unfortunately, that is becoming more prevalent. If you take a look around, you'll see. And I've even said from the beginning of this pandemic, I said, you're going to see a lot of people's true colors in this situation. And all I can say is I hope you guys are keeping your eyes peeled, because it's out there. It's blatant. And, that's, I don't know what to say about that. But to anyone who's struggling from burnout, just remember that. Stop comparing yourself to everyone else. Take a step back from looking at everybody else. Learn something new and schedule your day or make a routine. And that's all the advice I have. Like, I'm not perfect. My material is not perfect. My content is not perfect. My podcasts aren't perfect. I'm not perfect. And I own up to that in every single fucking meaning of the word. But, when I'm not perfect and other people are not perfect as well, and everyone else is copying each other, you're just going to get a lot of imperfections out there. So, I don't know. You guys can take it or leave it. I don't care. This is mainly, I guess, me going off the cuff and talking shit. As Joe Rogan says, we're all just talking shit. Don't take it to heart. But yeah, if you guys have any more advice, or if you have anything that kind of twisted your tit in a wrong way, feel free to reach out, leave a comment in the Facebook group. I don't do well with answering questions via, DMs or messages, hence why I opened up the floor to the Facebook group. So head over to facebook.com/groups/the6M podcast. Join us. Sound off on your thoughts. Ask me questions if you'd like. Ask the community questions. Make sure, if you guys are on YouTube and you listen to podcasts on YouTube, give us a subscription. Subscribe, like, comment, whatever you got to do. But most importantly, if you're listening to this podcast, please subscribe to the podcast, so you can get all of the up-to-date notifications of when a new episode arises every week. Rate the podcast if you'd like, and also fucking enjoy the podcast. That's why I do this. It's for you guys. So do me a favor, do that stuff and help me produce more good stuff for you guys. But that's about it from me. Again, I don't have any featured bands for this episode. Out of respect for what is going on, I don't think this is a great time for like promotion or like whatever. So that's where I'm at right now. I don't want to seem out of key, because honestly, everyone's hurting. I don't know. I'm sitting here telling you guys shit you guys already know. So I'm going to shut up. Stay tuned for the next episode. I'm going to have the lizard on the next episode, I believe. Unless things get picked up or unless everything gets lifted, then it's a different story. But as of now, we're on schedule for the next episode to be with a guest. So that's about it. All right. Stay safe, guys. Stay sane. Stay metal. And be yourself, God damn it.